income tax officials conducted surveys at the BBC's Delhi and Mumbai offices today and kept away the digital devices of the employees till the survey was underway. The timing of the survey has been brought into question by the opposition that has said this comes weeks after the controversial docu-series on Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which was blocked for viewing in India.
इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट आईटी डिपार्टमेंट चलो आप लोग फोन रखो इधर आराम से तो बात करो यार फोन गेट खुलवा रहे हैं आप तब से 10 मिनट से गेट कौन खुलवा रहे हैं आप लोग ऐसे बिना वारंट के गेट खोलेंगे वारंट आपको पता है वारंट सील हो चुका है देखा हुआ वारंट तब अंडर किया it's okay आराम से तो बात करो
An argument between BBC employees and income tax officials as the IT department carried out what it insisted was a survey at BBC offices in New Delhi and Mumbai weeks after the British public broadcaster aired a documentary critical of Prime Minister Modi over the 2002 Gujarat riots when Mr. Modi was the Chief Minister of that state.
The BBC's offices are located on the 5th and 6th floor of this building, and the focus after this early morning visit from the income tax authorities has been to quiz them on the issue of non-compliance on transfer pricing issues as well as sharing of profits.
In a statement, tax officials said the survey was over non-compliance of transfer pricing rules and that any seized phones or laptops would be returned. The IT department said, and I quote, "In the case of BBC, there has been persistent non-compliance with the above-mentioned rules for years. As a result of the same, several notices have been issued to the BBC. However, the BBC has been continuously defiant and non-compliant and has significantly diverted their profits." The BBC put out this social media statement saying they hope to resolve the situation soon. Sources said the BBC also sent a memo to staff asking those not in office to stay away and those at work to not panic, reportedly saying, "We are handling the situation." The ruling BJP ripped into the BBC for what it called venomous, shallow and agenda-driven reporting.
अगर कुछ गलत किया नहीं है, कानून का पालन किया है, तो फिर डर कैसा, फिर चिंता कैसी? ये कहना आज गलत नहीं होगा। बीबीसी के अगर कृत्य देखें, जिसके उदाहरण मैं आपके समक्ष अभी पेश करूंगा, तो ये पूरे विश्व की सबसे भ्रष्ट बकवास कॉर्पोरेशन हो गई है।
The opposition accused the government of targeting the BBC for being critical of the Prime Minister. In this tweet, Samajwadi Party chief Akhilesh Yadav said, "The Modi government stood for fear and oppression." Many other opposition leaders also called the IT survey vindictive.
विश्व में पहली बार बीबीसी के 100 साल के इतिहास में उन पर इस प्रकार की कोई छापामारी और रेड हुई है। और उनका कसूर क्या था? उन्होंने एक गुजरात के दंगों की डॉक्यूमेंट्री बनाई थी।
Last week, the Supreme Court rejected a request for a complete ban on the BBC in India over the Gujarat riots documentary, calling the petition entirely misconceived.
इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट आईटी डिपार्टमेंट चलो आप लोग फोन रखो
With Soit Mishra, Sunil Prabhu and Mukesh Sengar, Alok Pandey, NDTV.
Let me now go across to our guests who are joining us on the show this evening. Prabhu Dayal, former diplomat, one of the petitioners who had signed a letter to this when the Supreme Court, in fact, was looking at the blocking of the docu-series by the BBC. Desh Ratan Nigam, advocate of the Supreme Court, supports the BJP government, and Shadan Farasat, advocate of the Supreme Court. Desh Ratan Nigam, coming first to you. The opposition, in the past has been saying that agencies like, for instance, ED and CBI are used against critics of the government. Today, again, the timing is in question, isn't it?
Maha, in fact, such kind of an action was already taken in 2009 and 2010 when notices were issued and surveys were done under the UPA government. Now, whatever mighty you may be, the law is above you. And whether it is National Herald case or the BBC, if you are non-compliant, if you are violating the law will catch up with you. You may be BBC, you may be New York Times, you may be Washington Post, but the law enforcement by income tax does not work on perception. It goes by hard facts and not by perception of some political parties. Now, the Income Tax Department has clearly said there were non-compliances and also diversion of profits and irregularities in transfer pricing. And they have been doing it and they have been warning them and the notices have been issued and still they were defined and non-compliant. And if that be the case, then the next logical step would be survey. And if survey does not prove to be sufficient enough, then search and raid under 132A. The survey is under 133A of the Income Tax Act. And therefore, anybody who's talking today is presuming BBC to be, not being non-compliant and also presuming that they have not violated any law at this point of time.
Nigam, since you yourself mentioned that there was a prior case dating back to 2009, 2010, there's been a time gap of 12 years, really. That is why the question of the timing is coming into play here, considering that this move of the IT department comes just weeks after that controversy on the BBC docu-series.
Maha, in fact, let me put forward a theory that since this notices, warning, etc. about this non-compliance and violation of the Income Tax Act has been going on since a very long time back, before the documentary was released. Probably BBC was aware of that and in a preemptive manner, released this BBC documentary so that today they can play victim card. So this is, look at the timings today. Therefore, this was in January and the notices and the violations have been taking place since a very long time back. And the warnings have been there, notices have been there. Probably they became smarter and then probably thought of, releasing the documentary and then playing a victim card today. The fact is the UK government itself
Nigam, that then again, once again, if I play the devil's advocate, reflects poorly on then our intelligence that they have acted faster. And here the IT department has taken years to work on what are considered serious irregularities. I'll come back to you, sir. Shadan Farasat, what are the options that any journalistic organization or any media house has under these circumstances? The BBC put out a statement saying that they are cooperating with the survey that is being conducted.
Yeah, can I just make, before I answer your specific question, couple of points. I think firstly, the ban on the BBC documentary and now today's so-called survey, or colloquially if you will call it a raid, both shows a highly insecure government. A government which is so insecure that it needs to shut up every other voice which is not in consonance with its own propaganda and its own agenda. So I think it's the first massive self-goal was when they banned the documentary. And now the massive self-goal is when they have done this today by conducting an IT survey. News all across the world is that Modi government is targeting BBC for documentary. It's obviously up to every person on the road, irrespective of what conspiracy theories the supporters of the government will come up with. I just heard one by Mr. Nigam 2 minutes back. I was on some other channel, watching some other channel. Somebody said BBC is China funded. Therefore, this is being done. So, I mean, you can come up with 10,000 conspiracy theories, but the reason is obvious. And this is not the first time the government has done that. You look at, Dainik Bhaskar. There was a story on Corona which was done within 2 weeks. There's a raid. There is another channel called Bharat. Same thing happened. There at least News Laundry, Newsweek. So a whole bunch of things. It's a clear pattern. So now in terms of what the options are with this thing, that's also very important. Why have they not banned? Because if you ban something like this, the courts are going to basically set it aside. So what do? You use a low-level weapon, as it were. Income tax is the lowest level weapon you can use in terms of, the armory which the government has. So what do? You send a survey. Nobody can say, okay, I won't show my income tax returns. I have to show it. In the meantime, for your, they say ecosystem, there is the ecosystem of the right wing. Then the right wing ecosystem.
Shadan Farasat, are you saying that these are, as the Editors Guild statement says, intimidating tactics? Intimidation tactics, sorry?
Obviously, it's an intimidating tactic. It's an intimidating tactic, number one. It's, it's also something which will keep them involved. The BBC will need to engage. Their employees' phones are, kept there. It's a harassment. At the same time, it's not something full-fledged in the nature of a ban, which is likely to be set aside by the court.
But the BJP says that if they are above board, then they don't need to worry.
Well, if everybody is above board, then the police should be entering everybody's house all day. I mean, what kind of an argument? And in fact, Gaurav Bhatia's press conference, he's a fellow lawyer. I was shocked because he conflated both the points. In fact, he proved the point that, listen, we are doing this because BBC has done the documentary. So if you needed any proof, you had to only see Gaurav Bhatia's press
All right.
conference. The retaliatory move.
Let me go across to Prabhu Dayal on the first point that Shadan Farasat made, Prabhu Dayal, that world over now, the media is reporting this, linking it to the BBC docu-series that was blocked for viewing in India. How does it reflect on a country as big with such a proud democratic background? How does this really reflect on us?
Well, Maha, let me ask you a counter question. Would it have been correct for the Income Tax Department if it had come across irregularities committed by the BBC in regard to their transfers, etc.? Would it have been correct for them to ignore whatever they had noticed just because the BBC had produced a documentary which criticized our Prime Minister and alleged that there was some involvement on his part in the Gujarat riots? Now, I must tell you that when news spread about this BBC documentary, some senior colleagues wrote a petition pointing out that the Supreme Court of India, the highest judicial authority of the country, had rejected the suggestions that the Prime Minister had anything to do with the 2002 riots. So I respect the judgment of the Supreme Court. And if there is any insinuation that the Supreme Court's verdict was incorrect, then I am not prepared to accept that sort of an insinuation.
But Prabhu Dayal, considering
incorrect.
Prabhu Dayal, considering now that there has been a repeated commentary of India featuring low on press freedom, would it have been wise to not block the docu-series, let it go? After all, why do we undermine the intellect of the general public?
Is that question to me?
Yes, that question is for you, sir.
Well, that is a decision which government must take. What it decides should be viewed in the country and what it decides should not be viewed. Secondly, as regards this matter of looking into the BBC's financial issues and conducting a survey, that is something for the Income Tax Department to decide. Should the Income Tax Department not carry out its functions? What are you all suggesting? The Income Tax Department should sleep over its duties.
No, sir, nobody is suggesting that the Income Tax Department does not carry out its duties and do it responsibly so. The question here is about timing, and the question therefore then is also about the image of the country.
Maha, should the Income Tax Department not have carried out its duties just because there had been a BBC documentary? Are you suggesting that it should have held back from performing its duties?
I'm not suggesting anything at all. I'm just saying that the opposition is questioning the timing and it's coming close on the heels of that BBC docu-series controversy, and therefore the timing is being questioned. Deshrata Nigam wants to make a point. I'll go quickly across to him.
Let me come in.
Okay, all right, sir. Go ahead.
You had shown in your own program that the BBC's programs, that it's whatever it's broadcasting, it's business as usual. So has there been any interference with the BBC's broadcasting? None whatsoever. You showed some excerpts from the Hindi channel.
Okay.
So I think that the Income Tax Department should be allowed to do what it wants to. And if the opposition thinks otherwise, well, this is a free country. Everybody is entitled to have their views. Good luck to everybody.
Okay. Deshrata Nigam, sir, I have 30 seconds. Can you quickly make your point?
See, one thing is that since the SC verdict is there, and if it had not been there, if there was a ban, one could have agreed that there's some kind of a censorship. Once a verdict is there clearing Mr. Modi, then a ban is certainly covered under the IT rules and regulations and Rule 16 of the IT rules. Now, secondly, let me also tell you that, in fact, it's a question to Farasat, that is he sure that the BBC has not committed any violations?
All
Is he
right,
100%
I can
sure?
only give him 20 seconds. Shadan,
Can I answer
only
it?
20 seconds. We are
I am not
completely
sure-
out of time.
I am not sure if BBC has not committed any violations, but I'm very sure that the income tax department only wakes up in the context of Newsclick, News Laundry, Dainik Bhaskar and Bharat Samachar after they do a story critical of the government. So
All
it
right,
wakes up
we
very
will leave it
selectively
at
and
that.
only
I
when
think
the
all
story is
three of
done.
you have made
I'm
your
very
points
sure of
there.
that for sure.
I think all three of you have made your points there. Many thanks for joining us tonight on this discussion.